Welcome to Beyond Barber School. I am your host, Barbara Doza. This podcast, Beyond Barber School, is a space where listeners will hear stories from barbers, educators, and founders that are elevating the barbering industry in and out of the barbershop. Our hope here is to empower barbers with the knowledge necessary to take a courageous next step in their barber journey. Welcome to Beyond Barber School. All right, welcome back to another episode. It's Barbara Doza. Yeah, it's been a minute since we've recorded, so I'm excited to be back. I think it's been a few months, so thanks for your patience if y'all have been waiting for an episode. I'm very excited. Today we sit down with Corey Bogans, aka Corey London. I originally met Corey at the Salt Lake Beauty and Barber Expo at the Squire booth. Shout out to Squire. It's actually been like I think a year because the Salt Lake Barber and Beauty Expo was just this past weekend. So it's just been about a year that I first met Corey. And I've been following his career over this last year. And I just gotta say, there's like some big things happening for this barber. So had to get him on the podcast. I'm very honored because he's a busy man. And so to get some time with him right now, we're very, very fortunate. He's had a rebrand, a lot of education, being educated, doing education. He's been hosting events. A ton has been happening for you, Corey, this last year. And so excited to kind of dive in. There's a lot that we're going to talk about, so we're going to jam pack it in. But let's start with some background. So you went to barber school in San Diego, but now you're living in Arizona. And so could you talk to us just a little background, like biography background? Where'd you grow up and how did you end up in Arizona?
Yeah, man. First and foremost, man, just so excited to be here and excited to be on the podcast and just, talk about everything because, like you said, it's been a year, bro, and it's been a crazy year, But I'm a Texas native. I was born in Texas, Waco, Texas, to be exact. Small town USA, basically, and my father, who was raising me at the time, was in the military. So we moved around all over. We moved to Virginia, back to Texas, and then eventually out to California, is where I spent a majority of my life. So I went to middle school and high school, essentially in California. That was kind of home for me, Oceanside, California, to be exact. So when I was ready to go to barber school, I was looking for a school in that area. So that's just kind of what I was looking for in the area that I was looking for it in.
For sure. And then you've been in Arizona for how long now?
Man, wow! I've been in Arizona for it'll be 3 years actually in December. So
Okay.
it's been going by really fast though. I mean, I transitioned. I was in barber school for a year. It took me a while to get out of barber school because I was just working. I had to pay bills and stuff still, and started working at a shop out there. Built myself up, and then was just looking for some change, man. So I felt like the game was really saturated where I was, and I think just I wanted to grow, and growth was just kind of what was on my mind. And I think that I always kind of make steps and take steps in the sight of growth. So if I can see growth in an area, I'm kind of stepping towards that direction. So Arizona was like that direction of growth to me. So that's why I decided to go ahead and
Yeah.
come out here.
And talk to us about barbering. So like how did you get into barbering?
Man, honestly, it was kind of by necessity, bro. I mean, I was working for a beer distribution company in sales. I don't have the regular typical barber story. I never cut in anyone's garage, or I was never cutting at school or anything like that. Never really touched the clippers, honestly, before barber school, bro. So yeah, it was kind of wild. I got
Okay.
into it. I hurt my back working for my beer distribution job. Had workers' comp money saved up, and I literally Google searched like businesses that you can own quickly, and it's crazy. Yeah, I tell this story all the time, and
Yeah.
uh, and I Google search businesses that you can own quickly, and I'm like, hey man, listen, if I'm a barber, at least I can. My mindset was I can either go back to school, I can do real estate, I can find something where I can be passionate about, but barbering will just be a stepping stone for me to kind of figure out what that next step was. And I was just extremely blessed, man, and lucky to just fall in love with barbering and the industry, starting when I started at barber school.
It's so real. Yeah, not everybody has the story of cutting in the garage or,
Uh,
there are definitely those hitters in every barber school where you're like, man, this is not your first go around. But there's also the barbers who is like, this is actually my first haircut, right? Or first
A
time picking
hundred
up a
percent.
scissors. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's dope. Let's talk about where we met. So we were at Salt Lake Beauty and Barber Expo, and what I've found, at least when I attend expos, is the barbers who typically attend these expos are they're eager to learn, or what you're almost talking about, like that growth mindset, high aspirations, big vision. They understand, right, the importance of education, and that is leading towards like career progression. And so you've done like Julius Caesar's class. You traveled to Miami, you traveled to Montreal to take the 5 day gradient course. How has education influenced your career this past year?
I mean, I think that anything great that I can speak of, anything that we'll talk about here today, has all come from seeking further education in my career. I really, truly accredit everything to just seeking further education. I think that I realized that I wanted to get into a room with certain individuals. And I think that the key to doing that was the education. And I didn't realize that until I met Julius there at Salt Lake City. The way I ended up in Salt Lake City actually was Julius was looking for hair models, posted it on his story. I slid up on the story, shot him a DM like, yo, I'm interested in being a hair model. He hit me like, yo, can you send me videos of your hair? So I sent him videos of my hair, and he's like, well, I can't cut you on the main stage because I'm looking to do something a little bit different. But
Hmm.
if you're going to be there, I can cut you at the Squire booth and we'll do something cool.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, man, like, I'm interested. And he's like, all right, are you going to be there for sure? Like, he was like on me, like, yo, you're going to be there for sure. And I'm like, yeah, man, I'm actually in Arizona, but if you're serious, man, I'll fly out. And he was like, what, bro? That's love. So he was like, yeah, fly out. I went ahead and flew out to Salt Lake. It was my first time there. And yeah, we got my haircut. And just that's really what started a lot of my relationships with Squire. That was my first time I signed up for Squire that day. First day
Hmm.
meeting Julius and you as well. And as well as Curvell, actually, the creative director of Squire. He was there in attendance as well. So it was a crazy time to be in Salt Lake City. And I'm just blessed because it was right place, right time for sure.
Yeah, man. And that was a year ago. It's
A
crazy
year
how
ago,
much can
bro.
happen in a year.
I
Wow.
mean, wild, bro. It has me.
Wow.
I haven't been
So
even really gotten a chance to take it all in, bro. Trust.
I hopefully right now,
Yeah,
maybe it's the time
exactly.
to at least it's such a great, right, discipline. I try to have that discipline of reflection, right, and just remembrance, whether that's keeping a journal or just taking a second to stop and like, wow, like how far have I come, But let's talk about, because you bought the plane tickets, right? Whether it's flying to Salt Lake, whether it's flying to Miami, flying to
Mhm.
Montreal. How do you, or how did you like decide what type of classes you wanted to attend? Or you just said like, I wanted to put myself in the room with a certain amount of people? Like, what type of characteristics is it of those types of individuals you're like, I got to be in a room with these people? Like, what do you look for?
I think that it's really looking for things that I see in myself, things that I feel like are strong attributes of mine that I possess. And if I see people with just like-mindedness, or they're doing things creatively where I see the industry going, I definitely gravitate towards those people, and I choose them very specifically because it feels on brand with what I'm trying to do myself. So naturally, I want to be with those people or associated with those people who are not only being themselves truly, but also just pushing the industry forward as well. So it was it kind of was like I was looking for people who emulated traits that I had.
Okay, let's talk about. Not everyone can see the video of where you're at right now, but you're in the space where I think you hosted an event, right? You hosted an event the night before the Arizona Barber Expo. Can you talk to us about that event? Like, what was it? Like, what was it about?
So I think the biggest thing in this whole thing is just forming relationships, and um, the space that I'm in currently right now is based off of basically the relationships that I've formed with some of my clients. So one of my clients has a private business, and he has a large space here. It's a large warehouse here in North Scottsdale, Phoenix, Arizona, and it just was like I said, it's about finding those things that just feel on brand. And I think that when I came into the space after coming back from Montreal and seeing the spaces that we cut in there, it really gave me an insight of what I wanted to see in my own space and how creative I wanted to work in my own space. So I was looking for something specific, and through my clients, I was able to find this space, and it's been a blessing to be able to be here because the space is large. We did host an event here um, the day before Arizona Barber Expo. It was myself, Jay Majors, and the person who actually hosted the Arizona Barber Expo himself, Tootie. So we all met here. We did like a panel type discussion for a crowd of about 30 to 35 people here, and just answered questions about the business side of barbering along with Squire. Just things that you don't normally talk about. It's easy for people to push the agenda of, oh, I make a lot of money being a barber, or to push the agenda of it's just about doing the haircuts. But we really wanted to emphasize what it was like to run a business behind barbering. And I think Squire is doing a really good job of focusing on that and trying to bring that to a lot of barbers' attention, because as much as it is about cutting hair, we are running businesses as well. And so just being able to identify our business and what we can do to make it grow. And so growing my business really was coming into this space.
I feel like every time you host an event, right, you have the opportunity to like look back and be like, okay, what did we learn? How did that go? And then almost regroup and be like, all right, let's do another one, or let's try something
Yes.
different. So talk to us. What type of events are you hoping to continue to host?
Man, you're hearing it here first. That was a great question, but I'm getting ready to host what I'm going to call an immersive and experience. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut about 12 to 15 trending style haircuts that I see moving forward in the industry, and I'm going to work hand in hand with a designer who I will come to mention later on, and we will
Sure.
create an immersive experience, almost like a Rise of Hair. Shout out to Bird and his team for putting on the Rise of Hair. But it'll be something closer to that, something in between that Rise of Hair type of event and more of like fashion and runway type of event.
Okay, you also, so I think you were cutting at the Squire booth also at the Barber Expo, at the Arizona Barber Expo, and you
Hmm.
even mentioned like Julius. Obviously, you met at Salt Lake, and he was cutting at the booth, and now you're the one cutting at the booth. Like,
Yeah.
how what's it like cutting live at a booth, like at an expo? Like, what's that experience like?
I'm definitely thankful that I've cut in front of people before that, whether it be in my gradient classes or just recording myself cutting, just to see what I sound like or see what I'm doing while I'm cutting. But it's definitely nerve wracking for sure. I think just you kind of get the shakes a little bit. I've competed in a few barber battles, so if you've competed in a barber battle before, you kind of know exactly what I'm talking about. But anytime the lights are on you, I think that it's nerve wracking, because not only because of the event itself, but because you want to do so well, and you put an expectation on yourself of a certain type of performance. And that was exactly what I did then. I was definitely a little nervous, but I felt very confident because I was doing something that I had just basically picked up in Canada, and it was fresh on my mind. Just got back from Canada, and I was ready to perform for that show. I definitely did medium to long length haircuts because I knew I was going to be in a room full of people doing color and design. So that was my way of kind of standing out and breaking the mold. There was doing some more fundamental and technical styled haircuts.
And so logistically, I am curious about this because Julius, he was trying to find a model to be at the booth, which, I mean, I get it. Like, you can't have, if you're cutting at the booth and like a brand is expecting you, like Squire is expecting you to be cutting at the booth, you need somebody there to cut. So
Hmm.
how
Hmm.
did you go about finding models, and like how did you prepare even to cut like at the booth, or just, I mean, even just preparing for a show in general, like what does
Hmm.
that look like?
I definitely like to get a look at my models before the event. It's really stressful when you've never met them before and you just meet them at the event. So I try to avoid that if possible. I was really fortunate that the first time for me cutting for them was here in Arizona, because obviously it's in my own backyard, so I'm able to find clients a little bit easier. So I reached out to clients that I've made content with previously, and I kind of already known their hair. I know their hair type, exactly what I wanted to do. So I hit them both up, and I was very specific. I had them wear all black. You know, I was very specific about how I wanted their hair to be, how I wanted it to look, what I wanted them to wear, and what I wanted them to look like. Just because you have to think big picture sometimes with these things, I like to be over prepared for everything that I'm doing. I can just come and cut models and we have a great time, and Squire had a great time, but I always like to bring a level of professionalism. And I think that I want my brand itself, when I'm branding myself, to look and feel designer, right? Like I want it to look and feel elegant. So that's why I have my models wear specific clothes. I had them, like I said, dressed in all black. So that way the silhouettes of them was all really nice. Whenever we took pictures, I wore all white to offset the all black, and it was just whether you noticed it or not, it was an insignificant way or a subliminal way to really just drive home the personal branding that I carry with myself, to guarantee that like a brand like Squire wants to work with me in the future, right? I think it's about putting your best foot forward, and when you get an opportunity to work with these brands, to come correct, right? Like I want to come prepared, and I want to come like no one else is coming. So it's just something to be
Yeah.
mindful of. And really, I picked a lot of that up in Canada when I was in Montreal with working with Grady and working with Thaddeus. He does
Mhm.
a really, really great job of articulating his work, not only through the haircut itself, but through the models, through their clothes, backdrops, lighting, and things of that nature. So just learning from him and really using my eye and nitpicking things that he's done, and just being like, okay, what lessons can I take from that and bring to what I'm doing? So it just caused me to execute the way that I did there for the AZ Barber Expo, and I was really happy about it because I think that's what led to London happening.
We got to talk about your brand. You're talking about your brand a little bit here. So
Yeah.
you were once known as Blue Strip, but
Yep.
you rebranded, I believe, to the London Barbershop, and now, like, you have a service even that you called. I think you still have it called the
hmm
London Experience. Talk to us about that rebrand. Like, why did you rebrand from Blue Strip to the London Barbershop? And like, talk to us about just that process of rebranding.
It was really the best way I could describe it, as kind of a coming of age. Blue Strip Barber was something I developed by charging $100. So I was like, oh, it was cool because like Blue Strip is on $100 bill, and the way I thought of it is you can accumulate masses of $100 bills, but fundamentally it all comes back to that just $100, and it's just like you can't get anything that's better than that. And in the essence is kind of where Blue Strip came from. But I found myself having to explain that, and it's a lengthy explanation. So I just kind of was like, man, it's not going to hit, the way that I really wanted it to. And I met my biological father when I was a freshman in college, and his last name is London. And so, kind of as I grew into becoming the man that I am today and forming that relationship with my father, kind of really is what led me to changing and rebranding and just accepting me for who I am and just running with the name that I was given. So that's where Corey London came from. And I think that I got a lot of support when I did the brand change, because it came from a place of, like I said and touched on earlier, of just excellence and just really pushing for to provide a service for my clients that they're not getting anywhere else, and really trying to bring the upper echelons to not only myself and my business, but the barber industry as well as a whole. So
So, what's your vision then for? I mean, you touched on it a little bit, like on the rebrand or even the London Barbershop, but like, what's your vision here? What are you trying to accomplish, like in your career right now?
I think that the dope thing about it is what I've realized throughout my 5 to 6 years of cutting hair is that it's always developing. I think that I have a vision in my head of what I think to know is going to happen and come to fruition. And then obviously God and life has his own plans. So I think that for me, it was just more so about just trying to be as true to myself, you know what I mean, as possible.
Yeah, that makes sense.
hmm
That's dope, man. I think it's cool. I mean, the rebrand. I did not know that part of the story, even of the depth of. I mean, even story with your father and almost like a coming of age, or like that's legit, man. That's
Yeah,
cool.
man. It was just kind of like not shying away from it. I
Yeah.
think it was something that's it was a touchy subject in my life for quite a while. And I think that when I finally dealt with and addressed a lot of that stuff that was in my life, um, man, it took a lot of pressure off me, and it gave me this newfound feeling of just confidence And so I think
Mhm.
that it allowed me to move forward with my chin up, and just really
Yeah.
feel confident about not only what I'm doing, as far as being a barber and how difficult that is as well as, and then just being confident in who I am, as a man and a person. So
I don't know. For me, when I went through my branding experience, like once I did it and like kind of launched it, and I was like, this is a representation of who I am, and it almost forces you then to like be the embodiment of whatever
yeah,
your brand was, right? It almost forces
100%.
you to be it. It's like, all right, you did that. Now
Hmm.
it's time to actually walk it out. And
Yeah,
it's almost like a challenge for yourself of like, well, if I'm going to call this the London experience, I'm going to charge maybe a certain price point. I better deliver, and give them
100%.
something that they've never experienced before. Okay, so you just got back from Salon International in London, and we got to talk about this because it looks like it was quite the experience. So talk to us. What were you up to in London? Like, who are you representing? Like, talk to us about just what were you doing out there?
For sure. First and foremost, just shout out Squire, man. I mean, Squire has just been an amazing company to work with and partner with. I've been so blessed by the team there and how much they've shown me love and just given a young barber so much opportunity. So they allowed me to have the opportunity to come cut for them there while I was there for Salon International. And I also worked with Gradient as well while I was there. As soon as I knew that I was going, I was working with Squire. I hit up the Gradient team because I knew that they were going to have a booth. And so we talked, and it just worked out perfectly that I was able to work for both while I was there. So, super amazing opportunity, man. I mean, just kind of speechless, really, to be able to meet barbers like Kevin Lunchman and Alan Beek and just guys from across the pond that you don't get to come into contact with very often. And all of that just came from the opportunity of just being able to cut with Squire. And it was, man, I mean, just an amazing 3 days full of just hair, education, and just passion, man.
Yeah. So you were, I think I saw highlights. You were cutting at the booth, but it looked like you were also on the stage.
Yeah, yeah,
Whoa.
yeah, man.
What were you teaching? What were you doing on the stage?
Bro, it was really like amazing. So, I was on stage, fortunately, twice while I was there. First time, I talked for a brief moment, and then I was just working while Jay Majors was going over the business side of barbering with Squire. And then the second time, I was on stage with Hayden Cassidy. Shout out Hayden. She's an amazing, amazing barber in the UK, and just an amazing human being as well. She showed me a lot of love. And I was on stage with her the second time, and we both went over Squire, what has been and done for our businesses, both respectively, and as well as the haircuts that we had executed. I prepped both models before stage, so I was able to get them looking exactly the way I wanted them to before they got on stage. And then I got on stage and just talked a little bit about what I was doing, how I was doing it, but not too much into depth because when you have only 45 minutes on stage, you kind of just want to be more present with the crowd and not too much focused on the haircut. So I had the haircuts prepped and ready to go basically and just fine tuned the haircut and explained exactly what I did, with the audience and talked about Squire, just how much obviously it's changed my life. It's easy for me to talk about it, bro, because I'm in my season of growth, right? So I think
Mhm.
that Squire's just had a huge impact on my career and on my life. And so it's easy for me to be passionate about it and talk about it because it's happening in the right now.
We can do a Squire plug, unashamed. We have to do a big. I have a personal story, obviously, in connection with Squire. Shout out to the team there if they are listening. I haven't talked about this really on the podcast explicitly, but yeah, I worked with Squire for about a year, and I got a chance to meet a lot of the barbers actually that have been on this podcast.
And then I was able to work with Gradient while I was there. And I just think that, man, gradient is something that's hard for me to put into words, man. I think that what Thad is doing up there in Montreal, Canada is just, it's groundbreaking work, man. If you look at the branding, if you look at the execution, if you look at just the business side, all aspects of what they're doing up there is really been inspiring to me. And I think that you can clearly see that, I think, in my work and the way that I've been posting, and running my socials since I've taken my very first class in Montreal. And man, they had barbers for 3 days come from all over the world and cut every hour on the hour for every hour of Salon International. And so it was just like, I mean, you put together basically a dream team of barbers internationally. I mean, we're talking about guys from the U.S. like Dino and Jack Louie, guys from Canada like Hugo and Alexi, guys from Italy like Bulu, France, Sammy. It's just so many people, so many talented artists, and despite language barriers and a location, to still be able to pull a team together like that and execute in that way, I was just so impressed, man, by what he was able to accomplish in those 3 days at Salon International. So being able to be a part of that and help out with that group of people, and the networking that I was able to do just because of it, man, was just, I'm forever indebted, obviously, to them. They've become like family to me, and so definitely see more work between myself and Gradient in the future.
So was that a similar situation with Gradient? Like, of obviously you went to the 5 day course. Did you know them before taking the course, or was it like that was the first time kind of crossing paths with them in Montreal?
Yeah, it was my first time. I never met them previously. I actually kind of met or found out about Thaddeus through Julius. So Julius went to Canada and was up there, and Thaddeus and Julius are really good friends. And so I saw them together, and I was like, man, who is this guy? Clicked on his profile, and I found out about Gradient, and I was just like, whoa! Like I was, you go on the page, man. It's
Yeah.
visually pleasing. So this is around the time where he was launching the 5 day courses. I think they had only had one 5 day course previous to this, my first time going. I took it the first time, man, and I think the first time I really just was got the grasp of the fundamentals. But just going to Montreal was my first time out of the United States. Taking education, leaving the country for the first time, meeting an incredibly talented barber in Thaddeus with an amazing. I mean, Drake's barber at one point, has cut fashion weeks, has just been able to have an amazing career. I think that learning from him really opened my eyes to what the possibilities are in the industry. And that's what really made me kind of push and change and shift to what I'm doing in the direction that I'm going in now.
I found out about Gradient, I think it was when they released their book.
Yeah,
Like, I saw it circulating around.
that's
I don't
been,
know if I've seen a book like that. I mean, I still gotta get it, my hands
yeah.
on an actual copy, but, I mean,
Hmm.
looking at kind of a preview of what they were bringing in, I mean, I'd never seen anything like that. The technical aspect, which I think is so important with barbers, and, I remember, like, when I was going to barber school, I was talking to some friends, and they're like, "What do you learn in barber school?" I'm like, "Well, I'm learning anatomy right now." They're like, "You're learning anatomy?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I am." Like, you want me to tell you about some bones on your skull, or what's up? Like,
Yeah.
but all that stuff actually matters. Like, why does a haircut look good? How do you approach your haircut? What's your methodology, or what's your process? It's actually helpful to use the language, or the anatomy, the words that you've learned in your textbook. It's the foundations of sorts.
Hmm.
And so, anyways, I think that was the first that I've heard about gradient was because of the book.
Yeah.
And then you're right. I mean, so spot on. You go and check out their stuff, and you're like, wow, this is
It,
great.
it was great, yes. And I mean, I took it the first time and I went back and had to take it again, bro. He posted he was doing another 5 day class. I went back and took it again. I mean, listen, like the stuff wasn't easy, man. I really, that was putting all of my eggs in one basket. I'm spending my last dollar just to go out there, and you're paying for flights and hotels and just the course itself. So it's a really huge investment. But like I said, I don't think if I would have ever invested that money, I wouldn't. I mean, bro, I wouldn't have been able to execute the way I did at Arizona Barber Expo or go to London and do things of that nature. So I can literally pinpoint, going to Salt Lake City, meeting Julius, meeting you, meeting the Squire team, launched my careers, man, in just ways that it's just wild, and it all came from just seeking education beyond barber school, right? Like the podcast is named, man, and it's just been progression after progression and blessing after blessing, man.
And if this has happened in the last year, it's kind of wild to think like, oh, what's going to happen for you in this next year?
Man,
It's
I'm
only
telling you,
only
big
going to build
moves.
from here.
Big moves. And like we said, like I think that just being able to provide that service for my clients is why I was able to change things and name my services London Experience and things of that nature, because I'm no longer doing things based off just a haircut, right? So even if you're getting a medium skin fade, everything's tailored to you, right? Like your bone structure. When I can talk to you in a way that lets you know that I'm a professional, I take my job seriously, I think that it pushes that narrative of excellence and upper echelons that we were talking about earlier.
I hope maybe one day I'll have the 12 Pel guys on a podcast. What they're bringing to the industry right now in terms of education of clients and the importance of the consultation and talking to them about what hairstyle will work for your head shape or hair texture, etc. I mean,
Hmm.
they're changing, I'll say this, they're changing lives. These
No,
clients are coming to them saying,
man.
my barber this, my barber that, my barber can't get my hair right. They're butchering me up. Like they're educating a client who doesn't really understand why things work or why they don't work.
Hmm.
And if we just slow down and take the time to actually, yeah, talk about bone structure, talk about your face shape, talk about the things we freaking learned in barber school and actually
Yeah,
bring
man.
it in. Like it's not something to be like embarrassed of, because that license should mean something. It should mean that you are
Yeah, man.
educated to a certain degree, you are a professional, and you should be talking about those things with your clients. I see this kind of movement taking place, I think, across the industry. There's like certain niches of it. And yeah, it's dope to see.
Yeah, I definitely see that too, man. I think that it's honestly really important because I think an educated client is a better client. And the push for natural hairstyles, I think, is great, man. I mean, why force yourself to look like a cookie cutter version of yourself when you can look like the real version of you? And I think that that's the best version. And I think that as clients start to realize you don't have to look like the guy in the magazine, that the guy in the mirror is just as attractive and just as productive and is just as successful, I think that you're going to get an industry of happier barbers and happier clients. I just feel like the direction where things are going is so positive and I love to see it. And I think that it's not only going to in turn help clients, but help barbers too, man, because you're going to get clients who are not just sitting in the chair and saying, give me whatever, you know. They're like, man, okay, I want something that, you know, accentuates the fact that my head is round or my head is square, or I would like to keep length on top because I like to comb it over. Just if they can talk to you in that same language that you speak, I mean, it just makes your life so much easier.
All right. So on your Instagram, you call yourself like a men's hair architect,
Yeah.
right? What is that? Yeah, what does that mean? What does that mean to you?
To me, man, it's just being able to build haircuts for people and fundamentally build haircuts with shapes. So, as you start to progress through the grading education process, you'll learn that just like haircuts have certain shapes, whether they're round, triangle, or square. And I think that that comes from the inspiration of Vidal Sassoon. And if you're not familiar, definitely try and look up Vidal Sassoon because he's a true innovator in our industry. I think that a hair architect to me was just being able to be a precision men's haircutter that's able to execute haircuts that are not only shape wise perfectly sound, but also accentuating my clients as well. Just being able to build pillars, right, and do things that are foundationally successful and foundationally just correct.
All right, how about this quote? Find your passion, then die about it.
Yeah,
Talk to us about that one.
that's actually a Nipsey Hussle quote. So shout out Nip. Um, but I think that it's so important because in those times whenever there's doubt or there's times whenever times are hard, right? You may not have clients for a little while. We just went through COVID. A lot of barbers and barbershops are really suffering through that time. Coming back to the foundational aspect of just like, this is what I'm passionate about and this is what I love to do. And that any byproduct that comes from this is going to be a success because I'm doing what I'm passionate about and just never making any excuses, man. I think that just doing it, right? Like I didn't know that education was going to be like my window in, but I knew that I was putting my heart in the right place. and I knew that it seemed like the right thing to do, and it was something that I was passionate about. So I just pursued it 100%. I didn't think of all the ways that things wouldn't work out. I thought of all the ways that they would and what success would come if they did. And I think that just positive self talk and positive reinforcement to yourself, man, mental reinforcement is so important. I think that I can accredit a lot of things that have happened in my life that have been successful to just telling myself that it's going to all work out, whether I really believe it or not, and just
Mm.
really putting it out there into the universe and having the rewards come back just from having that positive mindset. And it's extremely difficult thing to do. But I think that if you form little habits of doing it every day, that it become who you are. And just being positive like that really changed that whole aspect for me.
Something that I wasn't prepared to ask you about, but you were posting something about, I think, was it I don't want to say cleanse, but that's just the word that's coming to my
Yeah,
mind.
yeah,
Was it like a challenge or cleanse? Like, can you talk to
yep.
us about what you had just done? I don't know if it's still going,
Yeah,
but
so
talk to us
like
about it.
like you said earlier, I think that whenever you do like a rebrand or I did the rebrand, it was about coming into it wholeheartedly. I did the 75 hard day challenge, but you work out 2 times a day, you drink a gallon of water a day, you read 10 pages of a book a day. And it was just really to get my mind and body right and really walking in the path of being that person that I wanted to be. Even, man, just to speak openly too, man, like I'm a big smoker, right? So I smoked weed a lot, whether it be with my clients or after work or before work. And going through this 75-day hard, it really just showed me the level of professionalism that I can have when I take care of my mind, I take care of my body, and I take care of my business. I couldn't believe the changes that I saw, man, in my life. And just not only how I was able to be impactful in my own life, but impact the lives of other people around me. They see me move different, feel different, look different. They're like, man, what are you doing? And I think that being able to respond to them like, I'm just taking care of myself better, respecting myself better. In turn, bro, is just dope to inspire other people to do it themselves. So now I have friends of mine doing 75 hard and just living a better lifestyle. And I think that, um, like you said, you can't just rebrand and stay the same. You definitely rebrand and pivot. And I wanted to just become better, and not just in my haircutting ability, but in my life and as a friend, as a mentor, as an educator. And so that's really what inspired that whole process. And it became a lifestyle now. So now I just maintain it. It's no longer a 75-day hard, it's just a lifestyle.
I feel like you've been posting a little bit about your analytics, and it looked like you're even working in partnership maybe with a social media like company, I want to say. Can you talk to
Yeah.
us about that?
So basically, I started working with this company called Private Paradise, and what they do is they help people grow basically their Instagram platforms through helping them get like organic followers purely by just going and using the algorithm that Instagram has in place. And so basically, essentially, what they'll do is they provide a few different packages that people are allowed to purchase and consume. But for me, my biggest thing was being able to meet people in my industry. That was a big focus for me, and just meet more barbers, getting connected with more barbers, and then more clientele as well. So I just started working with them, and what they do for me is basically go onto my Instagram and like thousands of people's stories a day. Those people see that I've liked their story, they view my account, they come back and they in turn either follow me or like some of the stuff that I have. So it was a nice way and an organic way for me to grow a following and a platform without buying likes or buying followers and things of that nature. Is just keep it purely organic. And so I'm really thankful. And that relationship came from being here in the office. That is one of the companies that I run here with some of the teams. So it's
Okay,
pretty
I got
cool to
you.
be able to simultaneously work on growing my platform and growing with the company here as well.
That makes sense. I was gonna ask, like, how has that grown your business? I mean, it's probably grown your business in the sense of clientele, but also even like education potentially. Like, talk
Yes.
to us about it. What's the impact of what your social media, even like branding or presence, has been on your career? Like, talk to us
Yeah,
about it.
so I think that for me, like branding myself was like the best way to kind of put that introductory foot forward. A lot of times now, instead of meeting someone and shaking their hand, it's a view of an Instagram profile. And I think that I was just really cognizant of that. So knowing that, I really wanted to make my page friendly for people to come visit. And I think that interacting with my followers is like a way to pay back what they do for me by following me, enhancing my page and my outlook on what I'm doing. So I use that to also meet young barbers who are looking to grow as well. Um, because I want to have an impact on the future barbers of the next generation, because I want to put out quality barbers. I really want to change the way that people view the industry. I think that for a long time, barbering has been put on a, I guess I'll say, back burner. If you were to go into a place and tell someone that you charge them $100 for a men's haircut in a barbershop, they may look at you really crazy. But if you were in a salon and you told someone you charged $100 for a men's haircut, it would be acceptable. And I just think that I really wanted to change, and I really want to change that narrative. And I think by doing that is by putting just better barbers in the industry who want to have that upper echelon feel, who want to just provide a service for their clients instead of just cranking out as many haircuts as I can crank out in a day.
Yeah, I feel it.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna start wrapping up here a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk to us. I feel like we've gotten a taste a little bit about your vision and mission, but I'll ask you it kind of to near wrap up here. So I mean, you own a shop, you got an established brand, you've now cut on stages, traveled internationally, expos, you've hosted events. Like, what can we expect, from you moving forward? Like, yeah, what can we expect? What's kind of the big picture moving forward for you?
I think the big picture for me is you'll see a lot more education coming from me in the future. Like I said, just pouring into that next generation of barber, I really want to tap into that because barber school was such an amazing experience for me. I think that fundamentally there, I tried new things all the time, and just having that spirit of always trying to grow. But for me, man, it'll just be a lot of education, a lot more traveling and educating as well. And I think you'll see a lot of raw and realness come from me, that you may not get from a lot of other people. I really don't try and push an image. I really try and push who I am as a person, and I really want people to understand that um, there is a level of excellence here, and it's something that we can all achieve. And I just want to be an example of that.
All right, so let's do some advice. What advice would you give, to a young barber who's, in barber school, or maybe it's their first week. Maybe they're just like you, where they never given a haircut before. They're about to give their first haircut. But what kind of advice would you give to a young barber that's in barber school, or maybe nearing to graduate barber school?
The best advice I can give, man, is just go after it and really try and educate yourself. Pour yourself into your education and pour it in wholeheartedly. Try new things. If you've never done it before, you're nervous about it, give it a try, because you never know what is going to be that next big thing for you. Um, like I said in the very beginning, I think I can accredit every great thing that I've done in my barber career up until this point to education, as well as my life, man, of just people pouring into me and investing knowledge into me, and me in turn turning that knowledge into success in my life, man. So be an open book, put yourself out there, and if you have any barbers that you really look up to, hit them up, man. See if you can be of service to them in some way. Never be too afraid. No one is ever too big. When you get into a room with these people, you realize that they're just the same as you are. So, Brand, just shoot the message, shoot the DM, go meet them in person, invest in the education, because it can really change your life, man. And I think that I'm a walking testament to that for sure.
Corey, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. This is Corey London. You can follow him on Instagram. It's at Corey London _. You heard him say it. You could be expecting a lot from him. He's got, probably some things he couldn't even necessarily share explicitly. So you just got to go follow him and make sure you don't miss it. So again, Corey, thanks for coming. Thank you, everybody, tuning in to another episode. Yeah, this was a treat. There's some gems in this one. I'm going to have to play them back for sure. So thanks, Corey. We really appreciate you, and we'll talk soon, huh?
Yes, sir. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
All right, Corey. See ya.
Later.